And as for you, my fine lady, it's true, I can't attend you here and now as I'd like. But just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and here on the channel I have two creators associated with IDW, but you're obviously you're independent creators. You both work for multiple companies, and I believe you both have careers in other ventures outside of comic books. And here to talk a little bit about the comic book industry and a little bit what's going on today, and specifically some of the things that you guys are working on. First is writer David Booher. How are you doing?
I'm doing. I was gonna say great, but it's hanging in.
Doing all right. And also the artist, his artist friend, partner in crime, his creative partner, Drew Zucker. How you doing?
I'm good.
All right, so we have to tackle the big thing in the room right now. We saw a slew of creators went on social media talking about pencils down. It feels like there maybe has been a halt as far as creative people moving forward in the industry. Production is halted. Obviously, there's a backlog of comics. There's a backlog of work, and a lot of people aren't working right now. What has your fate been? Are you still working? I know you were supposed to be doing a follow-up sequel to Canto.
So we're definitely still working. I mean, that's the big problem with anything that's a physical product right now, because everything is shut down from printing to transportation to distribution. Diamond, obviously, everybody knows about that if you're at all familiar with comics. But I think Drew and I both believe that we are very lucky to be in the creator-owned space because we get to manage the creative process. So we are continuing with the one-shot for Canto and the Clockwork Fairies is done. It's just waiting to be printed. The sequel, Drew is hard at work balancing his saving the world with his left hand and drawing little tin people with his right hand. It's we're still definitely full speed ahead in production, moving as fast, if not just a tick faster than we did before, to make sure we have it all ready.
So I know the one shot was supposed to come out in May, and I know there's some promotional stuff that the sequel was coming out. Obviously, that's all being pushed back. But you are working forward with the project, which is great, and I'm very happy for you guys. It sounds like a lot of people haven't been quite as fortunate, in the industry. One thing I'm noticing, I'm a YouTube creator, but I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm finding quarantine, while not the greatest thing in the world, I feel like I'm more productive right now. Is that what you guys are experiencing as well?
Yeah, for me, yeah, because it's kind of like, if I didn't have this to do, I'd probably just lose my mind. It's keeping me sane. But I'm also a big believer that if this is the moment to do whatever you wanted to do, anything that was sitting on your plate that it was always, I didn't have enough time, I couldn't, because I had to make money. Like, I get it that everyone's kind of stuck in this weird position with things because you obviously have to make money, but at the same time, if you had something that you believed in and you really wanted to work through, then this is the moment to be doing it.
Yeah, and it was the first 2 weeks for me was really, really difficult. Just the external stress was so kind of overwhelming. I got to a low point where my husband was like, I think I might have to perform an intervention because I don't know how we're going to get through this. And believe it or not, it was a Canto script. It was Canto 2, issue number 4 that I was on at the time, and I just buckled down and I pushed right through it. And honestly, it was just, bodily wrestling this thing to the ground and taking control of it and pushing through to the end. And now I feel like we're in a routine. It's it's an uncomfortable quarantine routine, but it's at least a rhythm. And I feel like I am getting a lot of good creative work done during this time.
It's crazy. I think people really downplay the significance of comics and what they can do. When I first moved here to the Philippines, I had been in the military and I retired, and my wife and my son were already here. And when I moved here, it was strange. You want to come in, you want to be super dad and all that kind of stuff. And then you realize they have a routine, right? And they have like their own little thing that they do on a daily basis. And I'm coming in, and it was very stressful. At times I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I should step in here, but I didn't know. And it was very stressful. And then my son actually got pneumonia, and and we had to go to the hospital, and I was, very stressed out. I was feeling so overwhelmed. And by that time I had talked to a couple of friends, and they had told me that, Exo Manowar was a good character. So I bought, they had a deal on Comixology. So I downloaded the first 3 volumes of Robert Venditti's Exo Manowar from Valiant Comics. And I just had them on my tablet. They'd been there for 3 weeks. I finally, that night I was, my wife and my son were in the hospital. They were sleeping. I was obviously with them. I was sleeping on the floor. I finally pulled out the tablet, and I was like, I need to do something to get my mind off of all this. And I read the very first volume of Robert Venditti's Exo Manowar. And it felt like a weight was lifted off me. It wasn't specifically dealing with my situation, but I just felt better. And when my wife woke up in the morning, that's all I wanted to talk about. I was like, I just read the best story. And comic books can really heal. I feel exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
And that's another thing that I've noticed. I think people maybe underestimate or undervalue the storytelling the opportunities for storytelling in comics, where I think it's the best storytelling method or storytelling medium out there, because you're not constricted by CGI budgets and settings and things like that. You can go wherever you want, not only on this world or on any other planet, but you're also not constricted that you can only provide information through visuals and audio. You can actually do thought bubbles, and you can do prose if you want to set the scenes and things like that. And it feels like it's the perfect medium between visual and reading. And it feels like some people don't take advantage of it nowadays, where a lot of things almost feel like storyboarding, for opportunities to maybe sell the story for Netflix or a movie or things like that. And maybe they tamp down their imaginations or some of the visuals when they could go so much bigger, because they wanted, so that you could see what it would look like maybe on the big screen.
Well, sure. I was on a podcast recently with another creator who is a screenwriter, and he made this really interesting comment, which I hadn't really thought about, because I was always inclined to do things like narration just as a storytelling aspect in comics. And he said he never did it. And somebody pulled him aside and said, this is comics. Let it be comics, man. Add narration, tell the story. And, there's things in TV and film that I'm also a screenwriter and a TV writer. And there are tropes that it's really frowned upon. Narration, voiceover and those sorts of things, unless they're really well done, people don't really want to see them. And in comics, I think Canto is a perfect example, where those opening narrations, it's like, it's the story that you read out loud, and the visuals go along with that, but it's that opportunity that you don't have either in prose. It's all narration. It's all the narrator talking, or in film, you can't really do any of that. So I totally agree that comics, the not great comics are the ones that really feel like storyboards for film.
Yeah.
And then you can obviously go in the opposite direction, which is everybody has thought bubbles and narration. And it's like, that's, why even have visuals if you have all that? But if you can find a sweet spot where you're telling a story with the words and the pictures working together, that's where the magic is. And that's where I think Drew and I really like to operate.
The flip side of that, and I had to learn it the hard way early in my career, is anyone that comes to you and says, oh yeah, this was supposed to be a movie or a short film, but we want to make a comic because we couldn't get it made as a short film. That is like the biggest red flag of nope. Because it is not written to be drawn. It is written to be filmed, and it will do nothing but drive you out of your mind.
Well, you know, and I think we're starting to see glimmers of this kind of storytelling bleeding into visual, like movies. Deadpool is the perfect example where the credits, Deadpool 2, the opening credits are hilarious. And I know they had to, I'm sure they had to get a waiver from all the different unions to not actually list any of the creators in the opening credits of the movie. But it felt to me like that's the kind of thing that you would do in a comic to make a really funny, fun comic book.
Yeah.
And here we are, a big blockbuster major Hollywood film that is relying on that technique from comics to make a movie. And it's really exciting to see even the next generation of filmmakers that are going to come from comics to be able to bring that aspect to it.
So that is going to do it for part 1 of my interview with Canto creative teams, David and Booher and Drew Zucker. And I really want to thank them so much for coming on the channel and talking comics with me. They're both really cool guys, absolute gentlemen. They absolutely love comics, so you can tell that they have a passion for them, and they were a real pleasure to interview. Now, I had never spoken to either Drew or David before in my life, and this was our first time interacting, and I didn't know really what to expect. I expected this to be maybe a 25 or 30-minute interview, and I was going to put the whole thing up on YouTube as one video. But it turns out we love talking comics, and the interview ended up taking a little bit over an hour, so I've decided to break it up into 4 parts. This was kind of the introduction, the first part of the interview, and I do want to apologize for having my frame cover up Drew's name during the interview. That won't happen again next time. That was a lesson learned. But there will be 3 more parts of this interview coming up. On Sunday, we're going to talk about their book from IDW, Canto, which was the first big hit for both of them in the comic book industry. It's an amazing book. I reviewed issue 1 when I was a little bitty channel, maybe had 300 subscribers back then. I really enjoyed the book. I read the entire series, read it with my son, and we loved reading that series together. It's inspired by The Wizard of Oz and Dante's Inferno. It's a very interesting book, so we're going to talk about that on Sunday. That's the largest part of the interview. And then on Monday and Tuesday, I'll release the 3rd and 4th parts of the interview where we talk about kind of the future of comic books, the future markets in comic books and how to reach them, and also how to do decompressed storytelling correctly and the effects that streaming and other forms of entertainment are having on comic book writing and how to do it in the future. And David M. Booher is actually primarily a screenwriter, so he has a lot of experience in that field, and he had a lot of good insight. Obviously, they both had a ton of great insight on the comic book industry, and like I said, I really enjoyed talking to him. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you do not know this, unfortunately, I forgot to kind of bring it up because I am a dunce, but Drew is an EMT in New York. He is on the front lines during this coronavirus COVID-19 crisis that we're going through. His contact details will be in the video description. If you want to shout him on Twitter, go and follow him. Let him know that you're supporting him, you like his book, and that you're behind him as he's out there on the front lines as an EMT fighting this terrible virus that's affecting the entire world right now. And there will also be contact details for David M. Booher in the video description. Go follow him on Twitter as well. Let him know that you appreciate his work. Thank you very much, and I hope you tune in for the next 3 parts of this wonderful interview. And once again, if you're watching, thank you very much to Drew and David. True gentlemen and just great dudes, and I couldn't have been happier to talk with them, and I really hope we have them on the channel again. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews, and don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.